Community members about how we work collectively in order to involve the system and create some really special moments for children every single day by protecting and also protecting the working conditions of every one of our adults and employees as well. I look forward to growing a beautiful partnership with each of you that will help our children and our community continue to thrive. And while I started 9 months ago in March, it feels like kind of 10 years with the pandemic, starting, within the first week coming in to engage and start to listen, learn, to be able to figure out how, to problem solve and decision make and move Hillsborough County from the 40th school district in the state out of 67 to a top 20 school district. We had to, the first week we had to close down the schools last fourth quarter of last year and transition to, remote learning. Very difficult to do when you have over 240 schools and 220,000 students that we serve every single day. We know we got we got better as a transition to the start of this school year. And the biggest thing we did was create a choice for all of our parents so they can determine the best and safest location for their learner every single day. Right now we have over 130,000 students that are attending brick and mortar school. And the remainder of our students, around 78,000 to 80,000, are learning in a remote capacity. That capacity could be, simultaneously learning through a classroom, through e-learning, remote learning, or transition to Hillsborough K-12 education as well. One of the biggest things that we've kind of jumped through right now is, that emergency order was extended through the Department of Education for the first semester. And now as we transition to the second semester, January the 19th was the start of the second semester, we just received a new direction emergency order from the Commissioner of Education. What that will do and what we wanted to do, we wanted to create choice continuation throughout the year. Therefore, that we will continue to offer innovative learning solutions. So we will have remote learning, K-12, Hillsborough K-12, and also brick and mortar schools offerings to our parents so they can find the best location for their learner along the way. One of the things the new emergency order does and provides for us that any student that is not being successful in the core courses, and if they have D or and F grades within their first and second quarter, the emergency order requires us to engage with parents and bring those individuals back so we can provide innovative solutions and interventions and support to bring those individuals back to brick and mortar schools along the way to be able to help them be successful. We do see that recently we put a survey out for our parents that around 50% of our parents have completed. We do see the bulk of our parents who are e-learning from a choice perspective wants to continue to do so. And that means that we will have to continue to elevate our experiences and provide ongoing professional development, not only to families about how to engage from a remote learning perspective, but how we build the capacity of every one of our teachers and support staff and paraprofessionals and leaders to make certain that remote learning continues to be an active solution so that the achievement gap does not continue to widen. We do know that during this pandemic, we started off at the beginning of the year with 7,600 students that did not engage in any way, shape, or form with any one of our learning solutions. We have leveraged social workers, school-based staff, school counselors, district staff to be able to connect with these individuals, to call them, make home visits, to be able to go to shelters, whatever it may be, to be able to connect with every one of our learners to figure out how we can bring them back, because we know that when they were with us, they are in a safe place, and we work diligently not only to provide high quality education every single day to prepare them for jobs that do not exist, but making certain that we give them the necessary essentials, whether it be mental health supports, whether that be involved in extra and co-curricular activities, or whether we continue to make certain they have the necessary nutrition to be successful along the way. So as we transition to the second quarter, we are prepared. There will be some adjustments in master schedules. As you know, we've had to make some really hard decisions at the beginning of the year. Not only did we find ourselves driving through a pandemic, but we also found ourselves with $72 million in the hole financially. So being able to figure out proactive solutions about how we can improve our fiscal health, it became very complex. And with that said, I had to make some very unpopular decisions being able to reduce 400 and eliminate 424 vacant teaching positions, move around 300 teachers from one school to the next to be able to link it based on student need, based on class size elements. And at the same time, we had to release around 45 brand new teachers that temporary teachers that signed contracts after August 14th. That is always undesirable actions that we have to engage in. However, when you have 25,000 employees, our role and responsibilities are to protect those individuals so that we can meet payroll every 2 weeks. And our payroll is around $66 to $68 million, and it fluctuates between that number every 2 weeks. So, my role and responsibility is to protect the organization, but at the same time, make sure we have a reliable, efficient organization that's fiscally responsible. One thing we've done since the second 9 weeks when those changes ended and we started to implement and move individuals from one school to the next, we are making certain from the second semester all the way to the end of the year that we're just focused on stability, focused on the well-being of every one of our learners, trying to gain access to them to figure out how we can further support them with their academic endeavors and determine if any additional wraparound services need to be so we can seek not only to develop the whole child, but also to develop the whole family. So with that said, we will be ongoing prepared to be able to further support every one of our learners as we make that transition. From the second quarter all the way to the end of the year, it's all about focusing on the instructional process, addressing the achievement gap so that we can provide, small group instruction, differentiated instruction, scaffold the instructional process, and maximize moments of learners with every one of our students, regardless if they're in brick and mortar or they are in remote learning as well. As we see, and as you know, that we continue to have somewhat of an upward trend with COVID. I never thought that I'd be a local, a local health expert, but I have learned to do so. But we've had beautiful partnerships with the Department of Health and also TGH and USF Health as well. They have helped us navigate, create, a model exemplar reopening plan for the state of Florida through school districts, and at the same time, being able to identify proactive steps that we continue to take related to identifying positive cases within our schools. On top of it, making certain that we follow the necessary protocols related to quarantine. The CDC recently reached out and identified new protocols related to quarantine students and employees. Up to that, it's been 14 days now. Individuals can come back if they have after 7 days or 10 days, 7 days with a negative assessments documented, and at the same time 10 days to be able to return. We will launch this new initiative and with CDC guidelines when we come back from in January to make sure that we are keeping every one of our students in a situation where they can return based on any guidelines that's identified by the Department of Health. One thing we do want to say, we've done a really good job being, with creating safe measures at every one of our schools. We have COVID leads, COVID commanders at the district level and school-based levels, and we've done a really nice job making certain that we put the necessary PPE and processes within our schools to make certain we have sanitation stations, not only in our classrooms, but in our common areas as well, so that we can continue not to be labeled or identified as a super spreader. Our local health experts confirmed that we continue to do really great things related to remodifying the configurations of our classrooms, making certain that we have directional hallways, making sure that we intake and dismiss our children in a staggered manner to be able to have an efficient way to follow protocols to make certain that we are continue to be safe and lead in a proper manner. What's on tap for us? The biggest thing for us is about changing mindset. As I said earlier, transition. I knew when I came in that we were ranked number 40th out of 67 in the state of Florida related to school districts, and that we had the most DNF schools in the state of Florida. And that mentality has to truly be addressed. And the way we do that is really create a theory of action, one that it creates a new strategic plan that will drive our work every single day. That strategic plan will be identified by by the Power Five, and these are levers to be able to create systemic improvements within Hillsborough County. We will focus on, as we transition to the launch of January in the 21 school year, we will focus on literacy and closing the achievement gap. We know that literacy is the foundation of all, and right now, 51% of our students overall at scale are only proficient in the area of literacy, so we have work to do. And coming in, what I've learned is that we had 240 independent contractors, and that curriculum was selected at the school-based level or by a regional superintendent, and it really wasn't identified at scale at the district level to identify tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 instructional curriculums, so that we can have consistency and determine the overall return on investment, and more importantly, to be able to use certain curriculums and support our teachers to help them enhance their craft and truly identify, our return on investment. As I said, the achievement gap continues to be major for us. That will be an area of focus because we have students of color that are tremendously underperforming within our school district. So how do we create that continuous improvement model to be able to address the mindset of not only our students, but our employees as well, where every student has the opportunity to excel and be exposed to high-level courses. One of the next Power Fives will be continuous improvement in climate and culture. We've got to create the greatest climate and culture within our organization so that people feel trusted and that there's openly mutual respect, and that we are continuing to make certain that we are helping every one of our employees, grow, develop, but at the same time gaining access to every one of our students, and because they are our customers and where they feel welcomed and they understand that the environment that we serve and provide every day is a psychologically safe place to learn and grow every single day that pushes their cognitive demands and pushes them intellectually, socially, emotionally. And then the third bucket in the Power Five is graduation rate. There was an initiative, the 90% by 2020. The school district didn't hit that initiative, so we'll continue to make certain that we strive to have above 90% of our students graduating on time with their cohort. But we also got to link that with career, workforce, and development, because it is tremendously important as we move forward and create pathways for our students. And build industry certifications that allow our students to compete not only inside of our classrooms, but outside of our classrooms as well. And the fourth one, we'll focus on STEM and the 21st century skill development. Every one of our students need to be able to decision make, be able to analyze, to make analytical decisions, to be able to problem solve, and they need to be able to become risk takers and in order to allow them to be achievers. So we'll focus on being able to expose students to more of a coding, more robotic initiatives, especially at the younger ages, to allow them to transition to overall technology development, to allow them the skills, to allow them to compete as we address the digital divide, and being able to give them the technical and problem solving skills that allow them to be successful as they transition away from Hillsborough County. And then also being able to be fiscal responsible. While we were $72 million in the whole transition in this year, that number continues to grow. As we hit in May and June, we see that number that will continue to be an uptick. So we've got to put a corrective action plan in place to be able to address our finances, where we continue to protect schools and leverage additional resources and strategies to be able to recoup funding every single day within our organization. But overall, when we talk about, best practices, we talk about moving and creating systemic change. The biggest thing we have to do is focus on high, excellence and high expectations, that every learner, no matter where they come from, no matter their zip code, has the availability to be able to compete, every single day intellectually. And my goal, my job is to make sure I fulfill and allow every student to become a full option graduate, whether that's the ability for them to launch into college, the military, the workforce, and earn and live in ways that will support them and their family as they become civic leaders every single day. So we have a lot on our plate right now. Fortunately, we have new school board members excited about their leadership, excited about their commitment to education, and we will transition. We will also transition to the hard work every single day from continuations. and continue to support every one of our learners, every one of our employees to be successful in within Hillsborough County Public Schools. So I can open this up for some questions. I know that somebody texted me and said I had some video issues, and but I can open up for questions. Sorry you can't see me. I'm not certain what's going on.
I know, Addison, you were frozen for a little bit. Screen went black, but we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. It's not your fault. We just didn't want to interrupt you because your information was great. So I'm not sure. I'm not a technical person, so
That's okay.
I tell you what might work. But we can certainly. We have a lot of people in this meeting, so we can certainly open it up for any questions. I'm looking to see if we have any in the chat. I know you were saying that we will continue the virtual.
We will. In the second semester, one of the biggest things we'll do is make sure we continue to have choice. And that process is allow our parents, and I think choice is the right decision because our parents should be able to identify the best and safest learning environment for their students. So, virtual will continue the second semester, and that will run from January to the end of the year in May. And we'll work every single day to improve those practices where we have more comfortability, not only with our employees, but with our parents and our students as well.
Yeah, I think that's very important because there's a comfort level that the parents need to have. And, you have some children that have immune issues and then families that have those as well. But then the other side of that is that, everyone wants their children back in school because there's so much that you gain as a student.
Absolutely. We'll be having a marketing push in the next 7 days throughout our community. You'll see between December and January. We will leverage billboards. We will leverage commercials, radio stations in order to try to get our children back into brick and mortar or back to Hillsborough County Public Schools. And because we want to, we are the foundation of everything with education, and we want to be able to show and demonstrate that we've done a really nice job to safely and successfully open our doors and gain access to our children. Our children are doing wonderful things. The best way to learn is in front of our teachers. Our teachers have been masterful in this process. They have a lot on their plate along with our leaders. My hat's off to each of them every single day and their commitment to this work. And you said it well. We need our students in back in our schools. And we'll do everything we can from a professional perspective to work with our local health experts to create the safest environment every single day for every one of our learners.
And how does our state or even Hillsborough County compare to other areas? Like, my family is in Baltimore, in Maryland, and they have not been. My niece is 18 and this is her senior year, and she hasn't been in school one day this year, and it looks like they might not go back.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you is that the state of Florida has been a leader in bringing students back to brick and mortar. We know that there's some districts throughout the nation that in some states that haven't brought their students back, and that's due to their current local, decision from their government perspective. But from our side of it, we've done a really nice job. We know that students who remain home, and remote learning isn't for every one of our students. However, I get it and respect the fact that parents want to protect themselves and protect their family members and protect their learners. But openly, the best way to learn is face to face, and that way we can help them through mental health interventions. We can help them address any academic intervention that needs to be to help students understand standards. And then our students need the social interaction. It is so important, and also they need to be actively engaged and involved along the way with their peers. and so they end with their school, whether it be co-curricular or extracurricular activities. So there's ownership and understanding along the way. So, other states have come down to visit Hillsborough County, to visit us and visit schools, to identify what we've done well, how we've done it, and what we can potentially refine as they seek to open their doors every day.
Okay, and we have some questions in chat. Megan was asking, do I understand correctly that there may be criteria that require students to attend school on campus if e-learning is unsuccessful for that student?
That is correct. The new emergency order requires school district to ask parents for their child to return. So any student that has DNFs and has been unsuccessful and has a undesired assessment from the baseline, we will triangulate those informations, and then we will connect with a parent and tell the parent that our recommendation is for them to come back to brick and mortar. There will be an acknowledgement form. The acknowledgement form will identify. The acknowledgement form will, give the parent the opportunity to not select the option, but they have to sign the acknowledgement form that understands that their child is underperforming, and they elect to keep them in remote learning instead of coming back to brick and mortar. But the new emergency order allows us to have those conversations and to be open and honest and transparent with our parents about what the best learning solution may be for their child from our professional perspective.
Okay, and I think Monica had some questions.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Addison. So I had a couple of questions. I have, I'm a proud graduate of the Hillsborough County School, Gaither High School, and I have my fourth one in middle school, sixth grader. He just returned to school yesterday for the first time.
Okay.
They allowed him to go back for those midterm reviews and then to take midterm exams. We thought it was best for him to do those in person. How are you going to address students who are not in that DF category, but they were e-learners? He's an A student who happens to be a B student right now at home. I definitely think because he was not in person, it did affect him as well. But
Sure.
there doesn't seem to be quite as much help for that student who is maybe not struggling and still passing and actually getting, good grades, but would be a better student. Are there any ways to address how we're going to be able to help those students? And then a second question, I'll ask you another one at the same time. What kind of preparation and training are we going to do for our teachers? I think that it's crucial that they're going to be able to handle, hopefully we're all back in school in 2021, 2022. There is going to be so much PTSD from our teachers and our administrators, our school board members who are taking lots of backlash for the choices and the decisions that are being made, our administrators, and then for our kids. And they've got to be able to get through. What type of training are we going to do in advance? I know many teachers did not feel like they were prepared to go back. And they're getting by right now. And I have to tell you, I think they're doing an amazing job. I'm extremely impressed with the school that my son is in for middle school and how they're handling not just in person, but in particular e-learners, because that's what he was until yesterday. But it's tough. So they're getting by, and I think they're doing a great job. But I do think that things are going to start to pivot, and we're going to have to be able to handle it. And how are we going to handle that? And then my third question is, I know you've talked about the children of color and our kids and who are in low demographics in some of our Chapter 1 schools. I feel like they're going to need even more. And we're seeing that food insecurity. I'm the director of a community food pantry here in North Tampa, and that food insecurity number has risen into the middle class. And so we know that it's growing. We do have some schools with those school pantries. We support lots of schools here in Northwest Tampa with those weekend food backpacks. How are we going to be able to address some of those needs as well?
Yeah, so I'll go back to your first question. Your first question was directly linked to, remind me what your first question was?
Is so students who are,
okay, coming back. So students who are transitioning from a B to an A.
Right.
So, openly, every student matters. And when we talk about students who are being unsuccessful from e-learning, it doesn't negate the fact that we are still providing ongoing supports and interventions for students who may have fallen from an A to a B to a B to a C to a C to a D. Our interventions remain the same. Now, a lot of it is remote learners who have transitioned from an A to a B could be because of the overall platform, and we will see, and I believe you'll see an uptick because they'll have that interaction, they'll have that real-time coaching, they'll be able to see and have a better understanding of that connectivity with the teacher, and then be able to leverage peer students that are as table coaches to help them continue to evolve. One thing we're trying to do is create a mindset is reshuffle and recreate and reimagine our instructional frameworks. So no longer getting to a point where it's a sit and get, extension of our lessons, but it's more of an inclusive where teachers are facilitating the learning and children are defending their claims, having discourse, having conversations, productively grappling with content so they can overall be successful. And what we're going to do in that instructional framework is now, as we introduce the lesson for about a 20-minute lesson, and then we'll create small group independent learning sessions where teachers will have, independent drive in small groups with students to be able to address whether it's a skill remediation, skill introduction, whether it's a standard remediation, whether it's an opportunity to go deeper into the content to further help our students be success. And the biggest thing we want to do is make certain that our students create ownership and also demonstrate understanding every single day, and that they're not compliantly engaged, but they're authentically engaged in the lessons to be able to evolve every single day. So being able to differentiate and scaffold it will allow us to do that and use, informal and formal evaluations and assessments to determine if a child is understanding the concepts and, or whether or not additional supports may be needed. As it relates to our teachers, we've been training our teachers since day one when we knew the pandemic was coming, whether it's on, learning platforms, whether it's on new curriculums, whether it's on how to address the digital divide, being able to provide interventions for our students, how to leverage Canvas, how to leverage Achieve 3000, how to leverage iReady, you name it, how to leverage Canvas, Edgenuity. That professional learning will continue to go. We launch in the end of October, beginning of November, how to strengthen the work for e-learning, remote learners for teachers, so they can continue to have that connectivity with our students along the way, and how to maximize moments of learning throughout the day, especially if those students are, from a K-12 perspective. And we took, while 90% of our teachers signed up to return to brick and mortar professionally, before the pandemic, and now only left 10% to teach in K-12. You got to think now we have almost half of our teachers, or 40% plus % of our teachers that are teaching remote learning. We're having to build the airplane while it's in the air, so they better have a better understanding of how to make that connectivity. So what we did was we leveraged all of the best practices identified in Hillsborough K-12 teachers, and used and leveraged that to provide ongoing trainings that we will strengthen every single day. And the biggest thing is listening and learning from teachers to figuring out how we can further help them, what supports they will continue to need, and then what we can do to continue to move the needle academically. And then we talk about students of color. The achievement gap is real. One thing that we, from my perspective, I have a great concern with the majority of our students are Black and brown. But when you walk into schools, our hiring processes doesn't match, the population that we serve every single day. So being able to have greater opportunity to create a longer, stronger bench of educators and leaders that are more diverse will allow us to be successful. And we're going to have ongoing professional development for teachers, also related to youth mental health first aid, trauma informed, so they can further have those connectivity with children. And then also looking at implicit bias training and cultural relevance as well, so that we can have a better understanding of the clientele that we serve and move together in concert every single day. So, we have a lot on our plate right now. You said it well, that our teachers have, are doing a lot. They've done a magnificent job in an unfortunate situation, the same of our leaders. And then openly, when we started this pandemic, no matter what decision the school board or the superintendent made, not only locally in Hillsborough, but throughout the state and nation, it was a 50-50 split, and it was very unpopular. But we have to move forward to make decisions based on children and leave the politics out of it and leave decisions of adults out of it and figuring out what we're going to do to further protect children every single day.
Absolutely. That training that you talked about initially, is that something that's mandatory? Is that up to the principals of each individual school? How does that work? Because I don't think that that's happening where I am, and I won't mention my school to call anybody out.
So are you asking about implicit bias?
I'm asking about, well, that as well. That
Are
I
youth
feel
mental
like,
health
to be
first
honest,
aid, or?
I feel like you should be making that mandatory. But
Yeah,
I'm
so
talking
what?
about the training too, about just with our e-learners and how to identify
Oh,
those
yeah.
students who
That's happening everywhere. That's happening everywhere. It's been sent out, cataloged through our, every teacher has availability through our professional development department. That's been happening. I think the launch was, it happened in the summer and throughout, and I think we relaunched a more improved version of our professional learning at the end of October. So anybody that doesn't have accessibility, tell them to reach out to me, and I'll make sure that they have a catalog to be able to go sign up.
All right. So it's something that's accessible to them, but again, not a mandatory thing as far as Hillsborough County Schools is for each teacher.
For you're talking about e-learning, professional development? Just trying to be
Yes.
explicit.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only, we will continue to help them. We are training leaders to help train them, because leaders continue to provide ongoing informal and formal observations and provide actionable feedback, but it is not mandatory to do so.
So the tools are there. They've got to go in that toolbox.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't address food insecurity.
Food insecurity. Listen, we've one thing during this pandemic, we've fed over, close to 6.8 million students since March. And I think we are unrivaled to be able to do that. Most school districts identify certain schools. I identified over 147 schools, and then I took 300 buses, and we went to places that geographically throughout our community to assist. As it relates to, in the fall break that we just currently had, we partnered with the city of Tampa to be able to, in Hillsborough County, to be able to provide food banks. And then we're going to be, then as we go to the winter break, our role and responsibility will continue to make certain that we have ongoing meals that parents can be able to pick up starting next week. As it relates to, food and nutrition as well, we have free food for every breakfast and lunch for every learner within this organization throughout this entire school year. There are specific times that we allow e-learners to come to our schools to pick up before lunch. I think it's around 10 o'clock in the morning, to be able to pick up any lunch and meal they need to further support the nutrition within the organization. So that's continued to be available, and we continue to be a model in that approach.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Tara had questions. She said, what has been the % of positive cases within the district, students and staff, and the % of quarantined students and staff throughout?
Yeah, so we've had less than 1% of our student body quarantined. You got to think, you got 220,000 students, 100 and you look at 100 and close to 30,000 students that are in our schools, but then you also have to look at the number of employees that are there as well. So overall, we had around a little bit over 1,900 plus cases since all the way dates back since March. Since July 31st. And that's inclusive of both employees and students. We have a data dashboard that anyone's welcome to go on to at hillsboroughschools.org, and you can look at the reopening plan, and it has a dashboard that identifies it, report by date, that identifies it by location, by region, by school, that identifies the number of positive cases for employees and for students. As it relates to quarantines go in and out, but we've had less than 1% of our students quarantined. It seems like a lot when kids are going in and out, and it's unfortunate. We want to keep them there, but we got to follow the Department of Health regulations and guidelines every day.
Okay, and another question, could you elaborate on the parent survey results?
Yeah, we sent a survey out to our parents, and around close to 50% of our parents, we sent out to remote learners. Anybody that's a remote learner, whether they're e-learning or whether they're Hillsborough K-12, we sent it out to homeschool parents, we sent it out to charter school parents, and we asked them, the second semester started, do you feel that Hillsborough Schools is a location or a place or a destination that you would like for your child to come back as the second semester. And, we've done a really nice job with safety, with social distancing and been successful. In that, it allows a individual parent to select whether or not they want to continue their current learning process and modality, or would they like to make the adjustments. And we're asking parents to that because we've got to really work with our schools to have a better understanding of what our master schedules will look like as we transition to the second semester. Openly, this has been open for 2 weeks, the parents, and we've put the full court press on to leverage social workers, school staff, district staff, school counselors to be able to make this connectivity. And we've done it in both English and Spanish. And for those who do not return it, then they will be obligated to take on their original decision for the first semester, so that we don't have continued chaos with changing schedules and teachers for the second semester. So the bulk of our families want to continue to learn in a remote manner. And but we do have close to 13,000 individuals, students and learners that would like to come back in January. So we're going to be preparing for that, to make sure that we're in class size and to make certain that they have a seamless transition. One thing, anybody that transitions back, especially for students who are underperforming, we will have a transition team meeting with parents, so they truly understand what protocols that we're taking from a safety perspective and what interventions and individualized plan that we will provide learners if they've been underperforming in the remote setting.
Okay. And I think Kelly had a question.
I do, and I think Monica addressed a lot of my concerns. So in another life, I worked for Hillsborough County Schools under a federal children's mental health grant, and we spent a lot of time setting up protocols and training teachers to recognize signs, especially of depression, anxiety, and obviously sometimes they manifest differently. It could be the kid like who I was, who just couldn't seem to pay attention in class, as opposed to Monica, who was obviously a straight A student, just listening to her talk. But I mean, we spent the better part of 2007 through 2009 putting those protocols in place long before a pandemic came around. So I'm just curious, do you have a team or do you have staff in place specifically looking at children's mental health needs?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you for your commitment to our students and during your time under this umbrella. We do. One thing we're fortunate, ever since the unfortunate situation that happened in Parkland with the shooting, what the state has done is provide us mental health dollars, and that mental health dollars has allowed us to put team members together to be able to triage and address and provide ongoing professional developments to our schools, for us to look at trauma-informed youth mental health first aid, to look at suicide intervention, and to be able to further assist our teachers with having early warning indicators of a student who may be going through some type of traumatic experience. And so we have done a really nice job leveraging those dollars. We've also used those dollars to identify SEL, which is social emotional learning curriculums to implement within our schools. And at the same time, being able to use and leverage panorama surveys to get feedback for our students to better assist them and help them along the way. But we've done a really nice job in this team of social workers, psychologists, and mental health leads. I've done a really nice job, linking and identifying internal and external supports to further to address our students. And where we may not have the internal supports, we're doing a really nice job leveraging the community supports to be able to connect the family as we seek to further help them. So we're thankful for the dollars, mental health dollars. We hope that they will continue to provide it because it's definitely a need for us. My aspirations are to be able to have drop-in clinics at every one of our secondary schools, and so that when a child may need assistance that's unscheduled, that we have a clinical, a therapeutic clinician that is on site to be able to further help and assist our learners in schedule and coordinate services where needed, if there is warranted actions beyond the drop-in clinic to be able to further assist. So we'll leverage that. We'll leverage our partnerships with within our community to be able to fill those roles, hopefully, and in order to have a more robust opportunity for our kids for thorough support.
That's great. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
Okay, and Sandra is asking, is there a way for a student to anonymously let the staff know that they notice something concerning about another student? Sometimes they don't want to say anything because maybe it's not accurate or they don't want to make a big deal out of it.
Absolutely. We have hotlines for that, which anonymous hotline they can call, or they can have accessibility to any one of our email addresses, or call the anonymous hotline that will allow them, or email us to allow us to take and immediately investigate a situation. We also have Fortified Florida. That is an application that's on every one of our devices where a student can log in and from an anonymous perspective and identify potential concerns or not only with themselves or others or within the school or in the community, that we will get actively engaged and that we are obligated to investigate, determine if there needs additional services or to alleviate any potential actions that may take place that may cause harm to themselves or others.
Is this hotline on the main, I guess, the main school page, or?
It is. It should be on. It should be on our district website.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Well, we've had some great questions. Anybody else? This is your time right now, as we're just a few weeks away from the beginning of the year.
Friend James has a little 4-year-old, so
I think that it's we can all just hope and pray that next year we won't be worrying about this and so much. We'll be back.
Absolutely.
And we definitely appreciate your time and informing us, because you definitely have a challenging position.
Yes, ma'am. It's been interesting every day, but it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And one of the biggest things that has been kind of a hindrance for us to be able to talk about our strategic plan or map to lead to success is my inability to be able to get out in the community. And with COVID, it's kind of shut us all down. And historically, I would go, to be able to talk about our district, talk about our blueprint to success. And so I appreciate the opportunity for you to allow me to speak to community members and stakeholders, because my job is to listen and learn, and then we're needed to be able to problem solve and interact. So I'm grateful. I appreciate it. Sorry about my video. I have no idea what's going on. Usually it works, but it's just one of those technology days, I guess.
That's okay. I think Kelly has another
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Just a comment. Thank you very much. And I guess it's sort of a question too. So we have had former school board, Cindy Stewart has been a CABA member and has been really involved in CABA and our community outreach programs for years. And then recently elected another CABA member for many years, Nadia Combs.
Okay.
And we would just like to advocate that we continue to have a school board member closely involved with CABA, because it has really helped our business community link to our schools and link to our greater community.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. We want them to continue to be civic leaders and to be able to be champions of our community. So absolutely.